It's really about the focus of providing the best service we can possibly provide to our citizens. That's the expectation from our public, and that's what I'm after. How can we provide the best service possible? That's really what drives me, is that service mindset for our public.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast, where we'll introduce sheriffs and deputies across Ohio. During this conversation, you'll get to know the men and women serving you and hear all about the good work being done in the Buckeye State every day. Now let's join your host, Paulding County Sheriff Jason Landers, and today's special guest. This episode is sponsored by the Buckeye State Educational Foundation.
Welcome to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We're here today with Sheriff Tom Riggenbach from Van Wert County. I'm Jason Landers, the Sheriff of Paulding County, and the host of today's podcast. Tom, welcome in. You're the first interviewee, if you will, to be on the podcast. It's only podcast number 2, but you're the first one to be in-house in the station. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you for having me, and really excited to be able to be a part of this podcast that the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association has started doing.
Yeah, so you know, because, and we'll get to your leadership position within the association, that some of us have been talking about this podcast for some time and the way things work, and to be able to work out the details and get things done right, it's taken a little bit of time. So pretty excited. We were able to drop episode 1 in February 2024 with Sheriff George Meyer, who's the current president of our association. And so we're excited to kind of go down through, my vision here is to go down through the executive board members within the association. And again, we'll get to where you fall in that. And I appreciate you being here. So a lot of the vision of this community, I think, is to connect sheriffs and their employees with the communities that they serve. And that can expand into, folks across the state. And, with today's technology and how popular podcasts are across the country, across the world. So let's get started right now with you telling the listeners a little bit about yourself, or a lot about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Any kind of hobbies or interests that you had in high school, and then we'll build into your training into law enforcement, how your career started. But tell the listeners a little bit about Tom Riggenbach.
So grew up in Van Wert County, graduated in 1989 from Van Wert, so I'm a Cougar alumni. I've been married just over 30 years to my wife, Heather. She also graduated from Van Wert. We have 3 children, daughter Mackenzie, son Tyler, son Noah. They're all out doing great things, from our daughter who's in Oklahoma, finishing up her PhD in psychology. Our son Tyler lives in North Carolina, works for Ally Financial. And then our youngest, Noah, he's a sophomore at Bowling Green State University. He just finished spending a week in Las Vegas as part of that program he's in for sport management, working at the Super Bowl. So our kids are doing incredible things, and we're really blessed as a family. Heather and I, we live in Convoy. We spent some time living out in the country and made a move into the village. At the time, all 3 kids were in school at Crestview, and she was working at the school. So we had a situation where we were able to move into the village, and went from driving our kids all over the place to walking to 90% of what we were doing. With their activities, I just spent 13 years as a middle school football coach at Crestview, something that was really near and dear to my heart, being able to be a part of that program and the opportunity and access it gave me to youth in our community at Crestview, and allow kids to know what I do for a living, but in my role as a coach, figure out I'm really just another guy. I'm somebody who's there for a multitude of reasons, but an avenue for them to interact with somebody they know is in law enforcement, and can be somebody they can talk to, somebody that really gives them, I hope, a comfort level with law enforcement, because I think that's really important. And trying to do that when you're only in uniform and working can be limiting. So, certainly that opportunity to have coached middle school football was something near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and it's you just brought up something. We're going to talk about some of these things throughout the podcast, but I was just talking with one of my deputies this morning, and how sometimes people just see you as this uniformed figure, maybe this robotic law enforcement officer, and they don't realize that, we're human too. We have interests as well. We have hobbies as well. And so I think it's so important that people understand, some folks that might not know those things about you will listen to this podcast and go, wow, he really coaches sports. He does. I thought he was just the sheriff. I thought all he done was went to work and drove that black car and wore that uniform and done those things every day. So, I think that's really important, some of the things that will come out about people in this podcast to relate back to their citizens that, we're human. We do a lot of things the same. So, Tom, talk a little bit about your law enforcement venture. At some point in your life, you made the decision to attend a basic peace officer academy somewhere. When did that happen for you? Where did that happen for you? Any college involved with that, or just getting straight into that police academy and going straight to work?
Yeah, so for me, in high school, junior year, I kind of really identified I wanted to get into law enforcement. There was a student who was a senior ahead of me that also got into law enforcement and went to Lima Technical College. So during my senior year of high school, I went with him a couple different days and kind of saw what the schedule was like and learned about the program over there. And so when I graduated high school in 1989, I enrolled and started at Lima Tech that fall. That was a 2-year associate degree program. And when I was done, graduated with that associate degree. But the unique piece, my class was the first one that the Opata Police Academy was spread out through that 2-year associate degree program. So I graduated with a degree as well as my certification in law enforcement. And then that fall, I got the opportunity to join the Van Wert County Sheriff's Office Auxiliary as an auxiliary deputy, and was involved with that organization for a few years until I was hired as a full-time deputy in March of 1995.
So folks don't have to get their calculators out driving down the road listening to this podcast. How many years ago was that for you that you started as a full-time employee in Van Wert County?
So in 2 weeks, that'll be 29 years of full-time service.
29 years. And we have the legend, Stan Owens, to thank for that, right? Stan was a sheriff when you started in Van Wert County, I'm sure.
Yes, he was. He gave a young kid that really probably didn't know a whole lot an opportunity, and it was a great opportunity for me to get into the sheriff's office, learn from the people then that were working at the sheriff's office, and certainly then learn from Stan and grow under his leadership and tutelage. And Stan played a major role in my decision to run for office to become the sheriff of Van Wert County. And we'll always have a debt of gratitude to Stan for doing that for me.
Well, and I know this. A lot of people might not know this, that you talk about learning from Stan through your career. You're still kind of learning from Stan, because Stan goes from being the long-term county sheriff to now a long-term county commissioner. So in some terms, you're still learning from Stan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great relationship to have. Your predecessor, a county sheriff, in the role as county commissioner, because we know all the detail and uniqueness that goes into being a county sheriff and what that operation entails. Not everybody else has a true understanding of it. So to have a commissioner that does, it certainly benefits me as the current sheriff, but it benefits that commissioner's office, because if the other commissioners don't understand something, they're able to talk to Stan in addition to me for any kind of input when it comes to something I might be asking for. Some people might say, oh, well, the former sheriff's a county commissioner, you're going to get everything you want. It doesn't work that way. Stan is true to who he is. He's going to do what he believes in. I know that, I appreciate that, and I respect that. Having him in the role he's in now is a tremendous benefit for the commissioner's office, for the sheriff's office, and for Van Wert County as a whole.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about your career. So nearly 3 decades at the Van Wert County Sheriff's Office. Talk to us about all the positions that you've held up until 2013 when you assumed the office of sheriff.
Sure. So, as I said, hired in 1995 as a full-time deputy. Became a canine handler in 1998. I spent 7 years as a dog handler. Was able to have 2 different canine partners. Probably the funnest thing I've ever done in law enforcement was being a dog handler. It's so special. Was a road sergeant for about 6 years, supervising personnel on my shifts, primarily second and third shift during that time. And then in 2005, Stan gave me the opportunity to take a significant promotion to Chief Deputy of Corrections. Really had never been in the jail past booking, if there was a problem with an inmate, to assist in booking when it was open. Prior to open, I took the public tour, if you will, when our jail opened. I really didn't know much about a jail operation. But what I knew is I wanted to run for sheriff someday, so I needed to learn what I know today is the biggest part of a sheriff's office operation, and that's running a jail. So it was an incredible opportunity. I learned so much that I had no idea about in that role, and was the chief deputy until taking office in 2013 as sheriff.
Yeah, so if we go back 27 years, for me, that's when you and I met.
Yes.
At that time, Van Wert County did not have their own jail. Paulding County, in our old historic building jail that was built in 1876, I was working in that jail as a new corrections officer, and on third shift, you'd bring some prisoners up to be booked into our facility, and that's when you and I met. And really, Tom, I would like to say for our friendship, there's been no looking back. I mean, if you think about that in 27 years, I consider you one of my best friends in this business, professionally, and I would like to say personally as well. And man, time flies, doesn't it?
It sure does. And I feel the same way about you, Jason. No looking back on that friendship. It's been really fun to see how our careers progressed to end up in the same role in our counties at the same time. And so that's really special. I always enjoy our time together, learning from you, laughing, and talking business, talking family, whatever it might be. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag on this, but tell us when you were elected sheriff, when you ran, when you were elected, how many terms you've been in office, and then let's conclude that with, are you filed to be on the primary election ballot that will be just upon us on March 19th, 2024?
Yeah, so I got elected in 2012 and took office January of 2013. It's my third term. I'm in my 12th year as sheriff, and I am filed. I'm on the primary ballot in March, running for re-election again for sheriff, and excited to hopefully get another opportunity to serve as the Van Wert County Sheriff.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, for me, when I ran that same year that you ran, I was 36 years old, and took a chance, took a leap, and, I've been real fortunate to also have been elected, as you have, 3 times and on the ballot as a 4th time. Let's talk a little bit more about Tom Riggenbach and your hobbies and some of the things that you do, maybe you and Heather are into. And one of my favorite things about Tom Riggenbach is we talk about the get-back coach on the football field on the varsity side. You talked a little bit about coaching junior high football, and man, it's so important to just instill fundamentals in youth as they go through, sports and life. But talk to us just a little bit about your experience, your hobbies, if you will, and then maybe a little bit about how that coaching is, and then what's a get-back coach?
Yeah, so the get-back coach is probably the funnest job you can have on a Friday night. The responsibility is to keep the players and the coaches behind the line so that you're not getting a penalty from the officials. You want the sideline official to always be looking at the playing field and not have to worry what's going on behind him. So I was fortunate enough my first year under Coach Jared Owens. He asked me if I'd be the get-back coach. I asked the question you just asked me, what's the get-back coach? And he explained it. I said, yep. Said, you got it. I'll be glad to do it. And had a great time doing it. I'm very vocal. Every play, when the whistle blows, I'm right into everybody behind the line, players back, coaches back. Typically, the coaches are the biggest challenge to get back. And, we've all seen on TV, whether it's the NCAA or the NFL, there's that guy that right at the last second is grabbing the head coach or a coordinator and pulling them back. And while I didn't have to do that very often, it is a lot of hollering to remind the coaches to get back. So it's one of the funnest things that I've been able to do, and was an extra part of being a middle school coach, and just thankful I got the chance to do it.
I think about that on a high school level, and calling some, I was a public address announcer for years at Antwerp School, watching from the press box what the get back coach does. And then as a play-by-play broadcaster or a color commentator, whichever role I'm in there, being able to see those things from afar. I have a different connection to maybe a different style of a get back coach. And I think maybe you and I have talked about this, but Ohio State University, Coach Ryan Day and Urban Meyer, young man I coached in junior high basketball, graduate of Antwerp High School, Quinn Temple is in an administrative role with the Ohio State football program. And so if you've watched a Buckeye game and you either watched Urban Meyer or today you watch Ryan Day march the sidelines, Quinn Temple is probably the most important get back coach, that I know. And he follows Ryan Day everywhere he goes, and you'll see him at times grab a hold of the back of his belt and pull him back, and it's pretty cool to watch a Paulding County guy, Quinn Temple, graduate at Antwerp High School.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In such a cool position and on national TV all the time. I'm going to turn a little bit and get a little bit more personal with you, Tom, if it's okay, a little bit. My love for you as a person, this is something I think that's really important, how I'm going to try to bring this around and together we'll hold it together on this because it can be an emotional topic. But when you talk about your involvement in sports, football, you talked about family, which I know is really, really important to you. There was an event with your youngest son, Noah, playing a game of football where there was an injury. And feel free to share as much as you feel comfortable talking about. But something that I remember from you through that is the brotherhood and sisterhood to the positions that we hold in the office of sheriff. As you talk through that, and again, at whatever the comfort level is, how important your office was that really held things together for you when you and Heather were dealing with, the biggest thing that probably had happened in your life at that point, and then expand on that to, how things came around across the state and how leadership in different positions all the way really to the top came together to support you and your family through that.
Yeah, so October of 2018, Noah's a freshman playing in a JV football game at Crestview. It's end of third, beginning of fourth quarter, and there's a play that happens, and he starts to walk towards the sideline, which is out of character for him, and he gives the wave like he needs a sub, and he comes over, and the team doc gets to him right away, and he starts to decompensate pretty quickly. Is laying on the ground. Doc is assessing him and looks at me and a couple other coaches that are standing there, and he's like, we need to get the squad here. I think he's got a brain bleed or a hemorrhage going on. And we called 911 to get the squad en route, and he gets transferred to the hospital. They do some testing, immediately decide he's got to go somewhere else. And the decision, fortunately, was he's going to go to Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus by helicopter. Our daughter was home for the weekend to watch the game. She was in college at the time, and we talked with the helicopter pilot and worked it out where she was going to be able to ride in the helicopter. I knew just because of how they calculate things, I wasn't going to be able to go in the helicopter. So we got it worked out so that she could go to Columbus and be with Noah down there. And we get down there, and they're doing their assessments on him, and it takes 2 hours to get to the hospital from Van Wert, and my wife and I make the trip as quick but safe as we can, and we get there, and we get greeted by a doctor in his room, a neurosurgeon, and then talking about, well, here's what's going on. He did have a brain bleed, had obviously a significant concussion. Also, they said he had a slight midline shift of his brain, so the brain wasn't in the same position that it I guess should be in. We spent 10 days with Noah down at Nationwide Children's Hospital. He was there about 48 hours when he started to have some seizures. The doctors assessed and took all the information in, and this neurosurgeon told us, she goes, I think that these seizures are caused by the blood that's sitting on his brain. They explained it that a teenager's brain isn't capable of dealing with the irritation caused by that blood sitting on his brain the way a grown adult is. And she was confident that if they got the blood off his brain, the seizures were going to stop. Okay, so we've got a plan. What do you mean by you got to get the blood off his brain? And so it meant cutting a portion of his skull out and going in and removing as much of the blood off his brain as they could, and putting the portion of skull back in place and securing it, stitching his the side of his head up. So he's got a pretty significant scar that runs from the top left of his hairline back behind the ear and comes up along the top of the ear. And the surgery was successful, and we're really thankful that God put us with that surgeon. She was incredible. So again, we were nationwide for 10 days, which is a long time to be in a hospital with your freshman-aged son at the time, and a lot of unknowns. But the thing that was really helpful in many ways was the response that we got from my office, from the school system, where Heather worked, other organizations, other individuals, and the Sheriff's Association. I got a phone call. Within that first couple days, Sheriff Mike Simpson from Preble County called, and we talked, and we got some support from the association as well. And everything happens for a reason. I wholeheartedly believe that. And while I'll never probably truly understand why God chose this to happen to Noah, what I do know is it happened to Noah because God knew all the things that were in place that were going to help us get through it. There were donations, monetary donations, food donations, gas card donations, schools that had nothing to do with what happened to Noah raising money to donate. It was just really incredible the way the community responded. I can remember sitting on the couch in Noah's room with Heather, and we've got all this going on, and she and I are like, we're going to have to keep people updated about what's going on, because our phones wouldn't stop going off. And so, we needed to be able to be there and be focused on Noah, but we knew we couldn't ignore all of the outpouring of support and people who truly cared and what can we do, what's going on, how can we help. And so Heather and I formulated a plan of how we were going to be doing our updates, morning update and afternoon or evening update, to just tell people what was going on. And really incredible. I mean, so many people that we have no idea who they are that sent something, even a card. And there's no way we could ever let all of these people know how much we appreciated that support and how much a part that played in helping us get through that 10 days. And then still, once we were home, Noah had a long haul when it comes to recovery. And, he lost a lot of body mass and had a lot of therapy. The kid just worked his tail off to kind of get back to where he was before the injury. I had a phone call early on with my chief deputy at the time, told him what was going on, told him, I know there's maybe something that you need to reach out and get a hold of me for, and that's fine. I don't appreciate that. I appreciate that, but I don't know when I'm coming back. And he said, no problem. We got it. You worry about your family. We'll take care of the office. And the entire office, quite frankly, responded with that same mindset. We see it day in and day out, or people show up day after day after day to do the job that needs to be done. And they just continued to do that in a way that really just allowed me to, if I needed to contact the office to just give the chief deputy an update on something or check in, I was able to do that. And the men and women who work at a sheriff's office are incredibly special, again, for what they do day in and day out. But when something happens to a member of the family, the way they respond in so many different ways to support the person that has had something happen in their family is incredible. And I will never forget that. My wife won't forget that because it was incredibly humbling, the outpouring of support that we got from everybody. It was pretty special.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps, my man. I mean, it's I appreciate you sharing that with the people. Some might say, why are you talking about that? I really believe is trying to put the foundation for this thing together. Connecting with our communities that we serve is at the top of my list for that. And that was just such an important part of your journey, of Heather's journey, of your sheriff's office bonding together, that for people listening to this thing that don't know what we do every day, we're not robots, man. I mean, we're human. Things happen to us, and we go respond to these calls every day. I mean, that's what happens. We respond to people's crisis every day. When it's our crisis, I think it's important, and you experience this, that people respond to us too, and they help us too, and we do it. Let's wrap this thing up a little bit, and we'll ramp this thing up a little bit. So bring Noah up to current day, man. Tell us about last weekend.
Yeah, so he's in sport management at Bowling Green State University, and he was one of, I think, around 30 kids that were selected to go to Las Vegas and work the Super Bowl. So he spent a week with this group out in Vegas. They worked a bunch of different types of events on different days leading up to the Super Bowl. They got a little free time, so he got to go do some hiking. And then on Super Bowl Sunday, he was part of a group that was working one of the entryways outside the stadium and working different displays, if you will, that they had up to make sure people aren't getting up messing with the displays, those kinds of things. So did a number of different activities. He said he had an incredible time. They were able to, when the game was over, get into the stadium. He FaceTimes us at 12:40 in the morning, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, what's going on? And get the phone answered, and he's like, can you guys see? And here he is, just kind of doing a 360, if you will, standing on the field, showing us everything. He said, yeah, I got a handful of confetti and stuffed it in my pocket. Nice. They were able to get up on that stadium where they did the trophy presentation and get some pictures. So he had an incredible experience. Really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Mac and Tyler, give them some love. Doing good things.
Yeah, they're doing great things. Mackenzie graduates in May from the University of Oklahoma. She'll have her PhD in psychology. She's looking for jobs, wants to be a college professor. So, we're excited for her to be going through this process as she gets ready for the next phase of life. And Tyler, he's working for Ally Financial, doing cybersecurity things for them. And so we're blessed. Our children are all doing incredibly well.
Absolutely. That's great. Talk about the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, Tom. So we grew up in this organization together. Talk about any positions that you've held, committees that you may serve on, or be the chair of a committee within the BSSA.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough several years ago to become a sheriff director for the Northwest District with the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. I was in that role for a couple of years before getting the opportunity to get into the chairs of the executive board. And so I've held the position of secretary, treasurer, third vice president, and currently am the second vice president of the association. So I've been very fortunate.
Good. And you chair a couple subcommittees for the association, correct?
Yeah, that's true. I am the chairman for the Concealed Carry Committee for the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association and the Court Security and Futures Committee for the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. I'm working with Sheriff Mike Heldman this year with his Community Corrections Committee and will be the chairman for that committee starting in 2025.
Awesome. Very good. Let's talk about the size of the Van Wert County Sheriff's Office. How many employees do you have? Sworn, civilian, jail, communications? Talk about your office specifically.
Yeah, so the Van Wert County Sheriff's Office has about 60 employees, 23 sworn deputies, We have 4 full-time communication officers, 3 part-time communication officers. In the corrections facility, I have about 30 employees there, about 13 full-time, and another 14 or 15 part-time correction officers and administrative staff that's over there. So it takes a lot of people, as you know, to run a sheriff's office operation, especially when you have a jail.
Yeah, and we all across the state, and we just left 2 days of sheriff training, and we'll get to that later in this podcast. Turnover. Everybody's experiencing this. What's happening within your organization? Are you fully staffed? Do you need some positions? Where is your turnover? Is it in a specific division within your office, or are things all well in Van Wert?
We're very fortunate. We are fully staffed. We typically are always looking for an additional part-time correction officer or part-time communication officer. And so that's just a normal course of business. But we are fully staffed. And if we had somebody leave, we don't necessarily have a big application pool. As I'm sure you've experienced, Jason, applications are down in our profession. But we're very fortunate with where we're sitting currently when we talk about our staffing.
Nice. Well, we're up against a break, but I want to ask you one more thing. This is one of my favorite questions that I have prepared for this podcast, Sheriff. What is your passion about law enforcement? What drives Tom Riggenbach every day to get up out of bed, put this uniform on, drive into Van Wert, and go to work every day for your citizens?
It's really about the focus of providing the best service we can possibly provide to our citizens. That's the expectation from our public, and that's what I'm after. How can we provide the best service possible? There's so many things that go into that, but it's important that we're always striving to do better because, again, our public expects it, and I'm okay with that. So that's really what drives me, is that service mindset for our public.
All right, we're going to talk about some trainings that we attended, some hurdles that we have in our profession, and we'll wrap this thing up in just a little bit. But right now, we're going to take a break.
This program is sponsored by the Buckeye State Educational Foundation. This foundation is in Columbus, Ohio, and was established in 1978. The Buckeye Sheriff's Educational Foundation provides seminars and training classes for the educational benefit of current sheriffs and deputies from across Ohio. The foundation also supports programs such as DARE, SRO, Jail Administrators Conference, newly elected sheriffs training, along with the image-enhancing projects of the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. Annual training includes a 16-hour course that is required by law for all 88 sheriffs in Ohio, as well as spring and fall seminars for all sheriffs and deputies that wish to attend. This foundation supports the efforts of this podcast to promote Ohio sheriffs and deputies and their mission to serve and protect the citizens of Ohio.
Welcome back to the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. We continue on with Sheriff Tom Riggenbach from Van Wert County. I'm Jason Landers, Sheriff of Paulding County, the host of this podcast. Sheriff, talk to the listeners about any persistent crimes or issues that you're seeing within your community today.
So we see very regularly the drug and alcohol effect on crime in our community. It seems to be a part of most everything we deal with. We see what I believe is an increase in some of our violent crimes related to threats, menacing, maybe some assaults, and certainly domestic violence. And unfortunately, one of the most consistent components in those crimes tends to be drugs and alcohol. So it's hard because the individuals that are under that influence and are committing the crimes that they are tend to be much more difficult to deal with, which raises the level of risk to the victims involved in that, but also to the men and women responding to these calls. Their safety is at a greater risk. And so that's definitely something that we're seeing that is a concern for me because of that safety factor. The job is always dangerous, and as we see an increase in some of the crimes that I mentioned and the consistent factor of drugs and alcohol, I worry about the safety of my people on the street, and then as well as in the jail, because many times certainly on the drug side, the effects that the drugs are having on the individual, they carry into any stay that individuals have for what can be several days up to a week before maybe they start to settle in and the effects of their drug use aren't negatively impacting them so much. So that's what we're seeing, and that's what's really a concern for me.
Yeah, when we look at our jail populations, it's pretty hard to find someone who's incarcerated in our facility that doesn't have a tie back to drugs or alcohol. I'm asked this a lot. Are the drugs really bad? Are the drugs worse today than they've ever been? And a lot of times what I say, and I answer it this way, is I don't know that the drug use is worse. The drugs are different. And today we're dealing with methamphetamine that's laced with fentanyl, carfentanil. It's coming. There's a straight line to the southern border. We could extend the time of this podcast a lot, I suppose, if we got on our box about the southern border and what it's doing and the cause and effect that's happening. But that's what we're seeing through our drug unit is we're buying crystal methamphetamine. It's not produced in Paulding, Ohio. It's not bought over in Fort Wayne. This stuff is coming from the southern border right up through the heart of Ohio. And so what that drug is doing to people and their decision making, their thought process, the mental health crisis that it is causing within our jail facilities. These people come in with an addiction to methamphetamine and they have a mental health crisis that we now have to deal with. So just really made things trying, and I concur with you when we talk about the most persistent crimes or issues today. There's a huge focus locally and across our state and across this country on drugs and alcohol as well, and the things that's going on. Tom, talk to us a little bit about any hurdles that you see in law enforcement. What are some things that are tough for us that we have to get over within our profession?
I think the biggest hurdle continues to be a negative perception of law enforcement by so many. And while mistakes can be made in law enforcement, it's no different than any other profession. But the constant, in my opinion, attack on law enforcement and our reputation, it's just not warranted. Our profession is filled with honest, ethical, hardworking men and women that only care about doing the best job they can for the citizens that they serve. Do mistakes get made? They sure do. And we take the steps that need to be taken when a mistake is made. But there's no other profession out there that can say they don't have problems, that they don't have things happen that shouldn't happen, but yet this attack on law enforcement's reputation continues. And it's unfortunate because that is a component, in my opinion, of the low numbers of applicants, both in quantity and especially quality, coming into this profession. Because it is an incredible profession to be able to make a positive difference in your community, or if you're someone who relocates somewhere else and you take a job in a different state or whatever that's in law enforcement, the community that you get established in, it's just one of the most incredible things that an individual can do. And our men and women should be incredibly proud that they're doing that. And the people in our community need to know they can be proud to be a part of our agencies and come join us.
Yeah, that's great. And let's roll that right into this. You and I just attended 2 days of training, 16 hours of training, with a focus on recruitment, hiring, and retention of people. A lot of good ideas that was shared from the instructor in that situation. Talk a little bit about anything that you're doing within your organization for recruitment, hiring, retention of employees, and maybe even add a little bit. How can folks find you? If someone's listening to this, driving down the road or sitting at home, or maybe a high school senior that wants to get into the Van Wert County Sheriff's Office, where can they go for those reasons of recruitment and hiring?
Yeah, so reaching out to us, vanwertcounty.org. And under the government tab, you'll be able to find the Sheriff's Office. You can click the link, takes us right to the Sheriff's Office website, and you're able to apply for any job. And we take applications all the time. We don't have to have a specific opening before someone can apply. There's a link that gets the public access to fill out an application to send in to us. So if someone has interest in a part-time communications job or a corrections job or a deputy job, they can fill out that application and we'll have it. If we don't have any openings at the time and we're not specifically looking, that application is going to remain on file. And, we like to see when people have interest because while we may not be specifically looking at that time, to be able to, when we do have an opening or we have a change and we want to add something, we know we can jump right into these applications and start that process instead of maybe having to wait 2 or 3 weeks after putting an ad out, that kind of thing. So our Sheriff's Office website gives everybody the ability to do that, and I think that's a good thing. When we talk about recruiting and hiring, we have attended different events at the schools to share information. Each year when we have our county fair, we'll have applications and people in our booth to be able to answer questions, help people fill out an application if they have interest, those types of things. And then one of the biggest things that I think has helped us when we talk about high school age kids, my office participates in what's called the Career Education Opportunity, or CEO program, that the Van Wert City Schools puts on. And so this is the 6th or 7th year we've been a part of this program. And so we'll have a senior who has interest in law enforcement that will come to the sheriff's office, typically the last part of the day, and they'll ride with a deputy. They'll sit in dispatch. They're able to sit at the jail and observe all these different things that go on with an office, and they do that through the course of their senior year to learn about what we do. And several times at the end of that school year, that CEO student has applied for a job with us, and we've hired that person. So that's been very beneficial for us. Vantage Career Center has a criminal justice program, and we have multiple students out of that program that are doing the same thing. They're coming to our dispatch center or the correctional facility for a couple hours a day or two a week to be able to see what's going on and learn more about the sheriff's office. And again, they're going to be in a position that if they have interest when they graduate, that they can fill out an application, and we're in a position to hire them. Because while so many people might want to be that deputy that's driving around in the car working the road, what is beneficial for them, and they might not understand, is if they can get into a sheriff's office with us as a dispatcher or a correction officer, they're learning about the entire operation and all the different things that are going to be going on, which will benefit them for when the time comes for an open deputy job, that they're able to get through the academy and meet that qualification. And it's something else that I did this past year. I had several part-time employees who were going to be going through the police academy. And so we did entered into agreements where the sheriff's office is helping them with costs associated with attending the police academy. And then they're going to remain employed with us for a period of time to help them offset the costs for going through that academy. And so I think investing in them is something that will help further down the road and getting my return on that investment when we have deputy positions open up and they're in a position to jump right in through the application process and know so much about our operation that it benefits them with that new job.
Yeah, I think that a lot of those things you talked about are becoming popular across Ohio. You know, the days ago when we started, when you put yourself through the academy, you got that certification, you went and got a job, and that was our application pool. We have to change those things to the point of what you're talking about of, you know, putting people through the academy and investing in them and then keeping them as part of our organization. A few more questions here in the podcast. Tom, you and I also, 7 to 10 days ago, we were out in Washington, D.C. for the National Sheriff's Association Midwinter Conference. Any takeaways from that you want to discuss, whether it came from breakout sessions or meetings or trainings, committee meetings, otherwise?
You know, I was pleased with the breakout sessions or training sessions, if you will. I thought there was a lot of good information through those. But I think what I took away the most from the conference was the information the video footage of the Hamas attack on Israel in October. It's pretty horrific to see, and really is concerning if something like that could happen in the United States. And it certainly gave a lot more perspective of just how bad that attack was on Israel. And nobody should have to go through something like that. And I certainly hope we never have to experience something like that here. But that was the thing that still has me thinking is that information and what we saw related to that attack, because it was horrific.
Yeah, that class was one that's going to resonate with everybody that was there. You know, some top clearance training that we had to be clear to be into, and but as the county sheriff responsible for the safety of your prospective county's property and the people within it, does make you think about what happened there and what we need to think about to train our people within our organizations in the event. You know, the mindset that's not going to happen here is just not appropriate, is it, Tom, for us to have? I mean, it's the easy approach to say that that's not going to happen here, but there was a comment made amongst some of the sheriffs out there from across the country. You know, we've been training aggressively since at least 2013 for active shooter situations in schools or populated areas, and this is a different deal. This is a much larger scale problem that we have to continue to talk about, and I think we will. So for Tom, I want to talk a couple more questions here before we end the episode. We talk about the office of sheriff and our statutory responsibilities, which kind of dictates what we do. Is there anything specifically about our statutory requirements that you would like to see a change or like to see added to, Tom?
You know, I like the idea of more clarification when we talk about the enforcement side of things. As we know, we have some pretty detailed language in the Ohio Revised Code as it relates to jails and sheriffs, and I think it would benefit the office of sheriff for some more language when it comes to the enforcement side of things that really helps the office of sheriff on what their responsibilities are. You know, we do so many things, and I'm not talking about we need a through double Z list of things, but I do think some more detail that benefits what sheriffs are doing, required to do along those lines.
Yeah, when we see sheriffs that come into our profession at what we refer to as new sheriff training, and there's going to be new sheriff training the end of 2024 that leads into 2025 as our terms end and new terms start, we'll see newly elected sheriffs that come from police departments or come maybe from the State Highway Patrol. We have some sheriffs that are from Natural Resources, ODNR, and they didn't have the upbringing that you and I did to understand what our duties are and our practices are, and so to your point of explaining and clarifying some enforcement issues, I think maybe even would help with some of those things. We have just a few minutes here to finish up. Is there anything at all? We've talked a lot and had some good dialogue today, Sheriff. Is there anything we've left out? Anything you'd like to discuss?
You know, one thing I want to bring up when we talk about the Van Wert County Sheriff's Office, we're going to be instituting the SheriffApp. That's something that I've been giving consideration to for quite some time, and we committed to that a couple weeks ago and are going through the process of getting that app built, if you will, and all the things that'll go into that. I think it'll be really, really good to have so many of the different things that the sheriff's office does right at the fingertips of our people, because it's an app. And as we all know, everything's on our phones. And so we're really excited about that. It's going to be 2 or 3 months before it'll be up and operational, and we'll certainly keep the public aware of this. But really excited for that. I think it's going to be really good, one, for the sheriff's office, but more importantly, it's going to be good for our citizens.
Yeah, so we're probably a year and a half into the Sheriff app, Paulding County, Ohio Sheriff app that's on your smartphone, Android, Apple, and it is interesting for me because I don't consider myself a techie person, but I really had to understand that we're in a time period, and my kids help me understand this. I have two college-age boys help me understand, but people aren't sitting down at the computer and going to search for things. They have everything they need right in the palm of their hands, and so they can have this application on their phone and click that thing and do so many things to connect to the people. You can connect to all my staff. You can see what they look like. You can put it. A lot of times when you're in a crisis, and we talked about in our business, we respond to crisis. You might not remember that someone's name is Joe Smith or Tom Riggenbach or Jason Landers, but you might remember what they look like. So I thought it was important to include a photo of our staff connected to an email, of course, our other contact information. I'll tell you the most popular thing on our whole app is the jail roster. It's in real time. It correlates with our jail management system, and you can see the analytics on the app to make sure that your money is you're getting what you paid for. But that thing is thousands of clicks on top of everything else up against the weather. So there's a weather option on our app there, and yeah, so I'm a fan of the Sheriff app. In our small community, I think it's a benefit the way you can push notifications out and those types of things and control some of the settings. I think that's going to be fantastic for you. Well, Sheriff Riggenbach, I'd like to thank you for being a part of today's episode. We would like to thank the Buckeye State Educational Foundation for their sponsorship. For Sheriff Tom Riggenbach, I'm Jason Landers. I'll be right back here next month featuring another Ohio sheriff or deputy on the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Bob Cornwell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association located in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for listening to our podcast today. It was brought to you by the Buckeye Sheriff's Educational Foundation. With this podcast, we are striving to introduce you to the sheriffs and deputies from around the state of Ohio and recognize their great work that they do for the citizens of Ohio. For more information about our organization, Google BuckeyeSheriffs.org. Thank you.